Network needs to be a networker and maybe eventually a distributor for this film, because it's got to go viral. It's got to go grassroots. It's got to go out there in a way where, now granted, this is just a 2-hour introductory special, and it's geared for people who don't know anything about the subject. So it's not for the UFO crowd at all, but it's to introduce all these aspects, the secrecy, the energy, the evidence, and also the future of contact, the future of a world with free energy, going into space together peacefully instead of with weapons blazing. That's what we're trying to cover. Now, you're doing that in 2 hours, which is a big a tall order. But what we want to do in the aftermath of it, if the public helps us with, as they have with the funding, if they help us with the rolling out of it, what we want to do, and what I'm planning to do in 2013, is to have, half a dozen additional half-hour to 1-hour shows that will drill down more and more deeply into all these issues that will come out on a regular basis, so that this 2-hour special just becomes like a doorway into the whole subject. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're developing a whole multimedia approach and a new website for that we hope to launch in the next couple of months. So that will be a doorway to this, because really when push comes to shove, it really is going to be the people. And it's the people not only finding out about this, but I liked what you said about 25 minutes ago. You mentioned this Sardinia, and I've heard of this, by the way, and that the people there, the local people, have a great deal of courage. Well, see, the people, if the people find their voice and their courage, there's no power on earth that can stop it. And so that's what we have to do.
Well, the irony in Sardinia is I went on a skywatch with this gentleman who unearthed a lot of these skeletons, and he told me that at night, and you can identify with this, the tubes come down from the heavens, and he can see the people that they've returned, on a dimensional level. Yep. There is visitations there, and he said, and he's photographed some of this, and he says, I can't get people to believe me unless they're sitting here like you are. And it was very much like the CE5 protocols he was doing here on his land in Sardinia, near Cagliari, near the capital. And I had been with you out in Crestone, so I had the wonderful experience everybody should have of being out in the night sky and experiencing this. And here I was in Sardinia, and here people all over the world are having this kind of interesting contact. And I think that, not only is it an earthly initiative, but I think you've got help from people in higher places.
Well, we do, and see, this is what's happened with the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative, or CE5 initiative, is, 20 years ago when I first came up with the idea, it was just myself and a couple people I found in Asheville, North Carolina, to do it. Now we have this global CE5 initiative, which you can find out about at cseti.org, and there's literally thousands of people around the world and hundreds of teams in every country doing this. And there's an app for your iPhone, and now also just a month or two ago we came out with an app for Androids, where you can download the remote viewing protocol, the meditation, the crop circle tones that we send out into space, and the whole concept behind making contact in your own local area and becoming a diplomat to these people. And there are now thousands of people who are doing that, which is creating its own zeitgeist. It's creating its own sort of morphogenic field of change, as Rupert Sheldrake would say, and in consciousness, but also in what people are doing. And it's really exciting because one of the members of our team will hold an event once a month or so where people coordinate on a 24-hour basis on time zones around the world where they're all doing it at the same time. So there's a continuous level of contact based in consciousness and peace. And when I saw those photographs you sent me from Sardinia, I thought immediately of the kinds of beings and photographs we've taken recently at our expeditions. 3 years ago when we were at Joshua Tree, there was this ambassador from the Andromeda galaxy that appeared, and actually the photograph of that being, whose name is Bijou, is at cseti.org, cseti.org, and it's a transdimensional electronic energy. It's like a light beam, but it is ET. Now, they could fully materialize in the flesh, but it'd be more dangerous for them because of the military tracking of them. But when they appear this way, they're quite visible, often with the naked eye, and certainly with these new digital cameras. So we're starting to get some amazing photographs like what you sent me. And it's interesting, too, that you mentioned that these skeletal remains are that tall, because we have a photograph from Mount Shasta from August when we were there with the team. And a member of our team, Deb Warren, took this photograph, and there's this luminous, glowing, reddish being that's about 15 feet tall. I'm not kidding. That's right there between us and this massive log lodge where we were doing this on 110 acres. And it's so cool. It's amazing. And when you told me that these beings that they had found were that large, I went, yes, we've actually had contact with these kinds of beings in this transdimensional energy field. And I think this kind of evidence is so important, and it's sort of the opposite end of the spectrum of this little ET body that we're investigating to put into this film Sirius. That's only, he's only 6 inches, or I say he, I don't know if it's a he or she. We really don't know the gender, but it's like a little mummy, but it's about 6 inches long, and we understand that the adults, because this was maybe a 1 or 2 year old baby, that the adults are only about 18 inches to 2 feet. So, the ET diversity is so amazing because it goes from these little tiny beings, the wee ones, as they would call in sort of Celtic literature, to these giants that have been seen in Ecuador and in Sardinia. These have been reported in more places than just Sardinia, Paula.
Yeah, there was an article while I was in Sardinia. They had found some in Greece under the Parthenon that were 15 feet tall. And I was looking at that article, and I thought, well, this is coming into my consciousness right now, so maybe I should look at this, because this is hidden archaeology that shows that whatever was here, whoever was here way before us and was visiting the planet then, and there's actual artifacts of these. I mean, I saw a tooth from one of these. I actually photographed it, one of these 15-foot tall people, and I could not believe it was a human tooth. It was huge. It was so interesting to me. And the man has written a book. It's all in Italian, of course, and has photographs in it. And what he asked me, he said, look, I'd like to share this with the world, but I live in such a small place. And he said, I don't speak English. Could you do something? And what I am trying to do is just disclose this so other people can take this on, because what I usually do, witness testimony, and so people that are interested in looking at these kinds of things should mobilize and start looking at the fact that all UFO research is not American.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the best material and evidence is not in the United States and is in these other countries, and that's something that, if there was ever a properly funded research initiative, I mean, as you know, you and I and others have done this just out of our back pocket and the sweat of our brow, but there's not as if there's a National Science Foundation grant for $50 million to research this stuff properly. We're just doing this. I mean, even the geneticist who's doing the work for us is doing this out of his own pocket and in his own time, because he's a tenured professor at an Ivy League school and has the ability to do it. But otherwise, the genetic work that he's doing would be well over 100. It'd be more than the budget almost in the entire film. And so people need to understand that's the other reason why the public needs to get behind this, so that there's the support in place, because there's more material and research out there than has been organized and properly presented. And by properly presented, I mean not in a tabloid UFO conference or a tabloid journal or the National Enquirer, but I mean done well and seriously. And that's what we really need to move towards, but of course to do that is costly and time consuming, and you have to have people who can be doing the research and putting it out there and creating multimedia information that the public can appreciate. And one of the things I've found is that while I'm happy to do these larger, more in-depth briefings for policy wonks, And, some of them will read a 600-page briefing document and certainly an 18-page executive summary. But the average person out there now lives in the Twitterverse of 142 characters. So you have to make it, I'm a bit of an academic, and you have to make it more digestible and presentable to larger and larger audiences, which is what the filmmaker is trying to do with the film Sirius, so that it can reach a lot of people with a dramatic narrative and all that sort of thing. But in terms of the evidence behind it, what we want to do is then pull in more and more of this. And one of the things I was going to ask you, are there people there in Sardinia who have physical evidence besides this one tooth? Are there other? Oh
no, there's bones. And also they just sent me the photographs of the tombs, the actual tombs. The tombs are long.
Do the bones, do you know if they have any marrow still in the bones?
No, because what it is they're keeping all this hidden. They've been threatened just like everybody else.
See, here's what we need to talk about. This little being, we don't know how old it was, but how long ago he was killed. But it's from the Atacama Desert in Chile. And the driest place on Earth, by the way, driest desert in the world, driest spot in the world. So it was very desiccated and very dry. And but it turned out that even though there wasn't any kind of flesh on the bones, there was some connective tissue. There was some material in the cranium we could get, and in the skull. And then there was also, when we clipped one of the ribs, or two of the ribs, under surgical procedures and sterile procedures, there was still bone marrow that was inside the center of the bone. So, and they have taken things all the way back to the time of the dinosaurs, where they have been able to get genetic materials and run a genetic study. So I think that if they have this kind of material, there could be a great deal of scientific discovery with these giants.
Absolutely.
I'm just putting that out there as a.
No, I agree, but it would take a team, as you said. It would take funding, and I have all the contacts of these people.
Okay, good.
So, and they
there's a follow-on investigation for the next film. So that's although I'm about ready to hurl myself over a cliff just to get this one finished. But I think that what we're going to want to do is make an investigation where there's more and more of this. Because what I'm going to see, I'm predicting this, it's already started to happen. As we come out with this next level of disclosure and public initiative, there's going to be more and more of this kind of amazing evidence coming out. And it exists. I mean, I know for a fact that there are, you mentioned archaeology, but there have been other things. One of the scientists that we've worked with a great deal, who works under contract through a corporation for the CIA, is from time to time given an old artifact that's a technological device that's hundreds of thousands or millions of years old that's been found. And the agency will acquire this. When they hear someone find something like this, they basically go in and just take it. Doesn't matter where it is. It could be in the Amazon. They just, they come in and just, jackbooted thugs take it. But this is the guy who studies it and to see what might it be used for, how did it operate. And he has told me that there have been many of these that have been found and discovered. And yet there could be something like this in private hands, just like this little being that we found that had been in the Atacama Desert was in private hands. It hadn't been snarfed up by the intelligence community. So, because they're not omnipotent and they're not omnipresent, they're fierce, but they're not. So I think I think more and more there's a chance that there could be this kind of material and evidence and ancient archaeology and what have you that can start coming forward that would be pretty dispositive. And so I think it's great that you were able to go to Sardinia and see this material.
Well, they were very happy to have somebody pay attention. I think I agree with you. I think there are pockets all over the world of discoveries, but people need to pay attention.
Right.
And people need to pay attention on a global level, because I think that's the only way you could connect the dots to to this whole thing. And I was going to ask you, what vision do you have for 2013? Because, I admire your vision. What do you think will be happening? How do you think this will all proceed with the film, with people, with a kind of an awakening and awareness?
Well, it's